just two files, but to any pair of files, and they can be within user bins or across user bins. I'll show you what a link looks like. This entity here within the parenthesis is an NLS text link, and I could have just put this in, but I happen to have it stored there. I could have just typed it in from the keyboard. Now what we have here is that's the name of the user, the owner of the file, that's the name of the file itself. This number 1 is a location within that file, and this information here is controls what view you see. I was showing you before the way to fold the file up. Well, this will do the same sort of thing. For instance, the M there will enable me to display the numbers when I get to the location that this refers to. This is like a reference, see Einstein, 1925, except you can execute it and go and look at the reference that is being referred to. And let me do that now. I say jump to link, select somewhere in the link, execute the command, and we're off in this file, which is another file. It so happens this file is the program for the meeting on the ASIS meeting on Thursday, the day after our presentation. So it may not be relevant for people in the audience tonight, but it should be relevant next Wednesday. Now maybe we can just talk our way around this one, Doug, and if there's something that direction you'd like to push me, otherwise I'll just go on in my little routine.
Well, let's just take a quick dive and see if there's anything in the online arena. What does that mean?
Okay, well, in the online arena, I'll now select it, put in the command jump to item, put it at the top of the display and open it up a little bit. Oh, it's just got an organizer. So let's go down another level and we'll start to see these systems are going to be in the online arena. Now we'll see there's an error down there, this TREATQ, that should be a Y, so replace character, Y.
Careful.
What?
You have a working copy created.
Yeah, I'll put one out. That just reminded me I didn't make it. There it is. Didn't make a working copy of the other file. Just to show you that this is not a slide. We're no longer talking about a slide projector. We haven't been all along, in fact.
That's important.
It's very important. We just jumped there. I didn't have those changes prearranged. I just made them as I was going. So this is sort of real and live.
This is a vehicle running around in information space.
Right. Perhaps if I back up a bit and I can go in here and show a little bit more detail. Go into library.
Well, we've better push the time a little bit there.
Okay.
Like maybe show them the structure of this file?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Go to the front of the file and open it up a bit. And there's a command we have that will allow us to see the structure. This tree represents the structure of the file. And for instance, see this is a thing we call a branch, this entity.
It's important to tell them that the computer looked at the file and then drew this picture on request.
Right. Just on request. I didn't draw this manually. It was done automatically. I find if I can use the command jump to item on that notch there, that node, and select it, with some luck we should go back to, well, not quite, but very close, to that online arena. So that's the equivalent of the structure and the text.
Go look at that structure again a moment, would you, Dave?
Okay. There it is.
It's interesting that every point that you could call a node actually represents a statement. And there's a statement with text that he went to this one, I guess, did you?
All right, I'll pick another one. I'll go to that.
All right, but that represents text, but there are 4 substatements under it, and each of those has one under it.
Right.
And then here's one with only one substatement, and there's a statement that has quite a bunch underneath it.
Right.
So you can actually operate on the structure from here. And it's rather a valuable sort of way to get in and see what kind of material you do have. I think we better
right, that's
move along.
I just got my 15-minute cue.
Well, yeah. Go look at that. You had a very nice diagram showing the relationship of these files we visited.
Yeah, well, it'll take me just 2 flashes to get there, maybe 3.
So, yeah, he's jumping, bing, bing, bing through that space, and you don't have to.
This is something like real time. Oh, I knew I had to put the.
Don't try to read it, everyone. So he's stopping to write a file, to write a link.
Yeah, that was unrehearsed. We're now jumping on that link.
You will believe it.
We're down here. Open this right up. Yes, now this link here will take me back to a little diagram that, because it's going very slowly at the moment. I'm jumping on this link, and I'm back to a picture. And we'll just sort of run through now the way I went around the files. We're in Old King Cole to start off with, or He's a Merry Old Man or something else. And then we went from there into the picture that showed the hierarchy of the sort of presentation file, not the one the computer drew, the one I drew. We went from there by a link off to that agenda, to the program, and then very quickly, just a few seconds ago, I wrote in another link there that put me off to abstracts from that program, and then another link that came back to the picture. So we navigated our way around 4 files. And if you think about that as navigation and movement around between files, it's complementary to the things we went through at first with Old King Cole, with the movement, with the operations, the use of the vehicle within a file. Together, that makes a very powerful vehicle for working in complex information structures. Okay, Doug, I think that's pretty well the sort of message that I can get in this time.
Yeah, that was very well done, Dave. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I'm powerless until they give me back my blackboard. But I think the things we would really like to emphasize is when we're presenting this material to you, we're showing you the tool that we're trying to talk about and using it as a means to present the material. And for all of us, we are going through our own kind of working information space in order to do that. And so we're controlling it. We're not taking to a preset bunch of pages as a slide projector. We're jumping to places and asking for particular views. Let me have my computer display back, and I'll proceed on like that. So I'm all alone on the screen now, and that's my control bug. So I can say, look, I know that that was the last statement in a certain list, and I want to go up. So I asked him to do that, and it went up, and I says, show me what was below it. And we had been looking there, and I had gone through this list, and if we wish, I can show you that those are just items in a file. And in fact, if I really open them up, you see that here were links stuck underneath those. And that was the way when I was looking at that material like this, oops, like this, or actually it was like this, take your choice. I could just point to here and say go, and I was using a jump to link to run off under some strange file to show you the material you wanted that you were looking at. So let's just now go up and see that we have the whole agenda here. This is a file giving me the agenda. And we went through these parts, and we're down in here now. We can go look at that a little more closely. And Dave Evans has given us the basic description of NLS. And there's something I'd like to go on about emphasizing the metaphor of an information space vehicle. And I jump on a link. And there's a picture I have where I'd like to talk to you about the way we can consider NLS, our online system, to be a combination instrument and vehicle for helping ourselves to operate within a domain of complex information systems. So when we mean operate, what we're interested in doing now is compose, study, and modify, and to emphasize more about complex information structures. We really feel that while content is put forth in most of our books in a nice linear fashion, the concepts that content usually represents is really a lot of relationships between those concepts that form a network or complex structure. And we want to represent that within our information that the computer holds. So it's important to us to do that. And we really are concerned with information structures where this interrelationship of the concepts may get so detailed and involved that if you went and studied, say, a printout on a book or something with all the cross-references and footnotes and see also that you might have in there, it'd be so complex you really could hardly find your way through it. But that's where the instrument comes in, because it really helps us navigate through that structure very much, moving around it very fast and flexibly, and to see without suffering from all that complexity. Give us the view that at this position and with my current need will satisfy me to gain the comprehension I need of what's there. Give me the view that will show me the organization and relationship between the concepts such that I can reach and make the change that's appropriate for my need of the moment. It's in this sense that we think of this as a real vehicle and an instrument. And it's very important to us that these questions of complex information structure, that flexible moving around and studying and seeing things, is really a very important feature to us. That we've gone to great lengths to make the system fast, flexible, conceptually related to the way a person wants to work and think, but at the same time not being afraid to go into new ways of working, new ways of thinking, new conventions for organizing our information, and indeed finding that it's very, very, very important to let these things modify harmoniously with the power that this tool brings us, so that it really brings the most effectiveness possible to that mind of ours. Let's see if my effective mind can get me back home. All right. So the next item here about the sort of functional things that go on in an information system. Inside it, you have to have operation and management. You need customers to provide information to you. You need customers in the form of users that will come and get it. And you need a team, someone to develop the system. We've emphasized that the system development aspect is very important to us. We want to go on and show you also that things we do are very relevant to the business of operating and managing systems of all kinds, especially information systems, and more particularly system development support systems. So we're going to proceed through a sequence of people showing you how we work inside of specific kinds of files related to system development, to management, and to the upkeep and management of an information system from the sort of information upkeep point of view. Just take a quick review of the special kinds of tools we have. We've already seen the way you can change the view, levels and truncations, that help a great deal in finding a way, the information retrieval kinds of tools you'd like to have. Jumping about is a powerful tool. Freezing things while you keep them in view and scan through other structure is important. Two other tools are going to be introduced subsequently that add to our repertoire of tools. And we'll now move on to three successive people who are going to give you working examples, taking you through their files on these kinds of materials. So first, be Bill Paxton, talking about system development tools. Hi, Bill.
Hello, Doug.
Bill's a system programmer, and as such is going to be able to show us down inside the documentation files and the work we're doing that he and a crew of people are doing. And let's begin by taking a look at his text. And while a lot of the particular forms of information you see are esoteric and peculiarly oriented to what a programmer does when he's working on a very complex system, I'll try to give you some feeling that you could relate this almost as though you were, say, in a problem of designing a monstrous ship, and where many components and parts of the ship located in many places that have many particular design details that have to be settled on them, and people have to go refer to them, study them, and see the relationships between them or modify them. Such is the system we have. Okay, Bill, let's see. You have me on the screen? Good,
yep.
Thanks.
Ready to go?
Yep.
Okay, very good. As Doug's saying, we'll try to emphasize the way in which we're trying to evolve a system to make use of some of the things you've seen so far, the ability to refer to statements by name, to interconnect a large amount of information by links, and being able to move very quickly back and forth through this mass of information. The actual program that we've written to do all this is contained as part of the system in files on the computer that are available through the system. For the program, we have, I think, something on the order of 20 or so files. And each file is in turn made up of many small routines, small what are called procedures, each of which is a little program. All of these programs interact to build up the entire program.
Did I miss it? Did you tell them that this particular program is one for NLS that provides the service to the screen that we're seeing now, actually?
I think I may have missed that, but since you did it, I don't have to say it.
All right. Okay, so it really is a design for a vehicle.
Very much so. Right. Just as an example to illustrate that, let's take a hypothetical procedure P in a file F. We would have a unique name for each of the procedures in this file so that we could refer to procedure P by first getting ourselves into file F and then talking about P by its name.
Right. If we wanted to work in the metaphor of a vehicle, a process or procedure defined here would be analogous to, say, some functional component like a pump or a motor or a meter or an instrument inside our vehicle. And that, someplace, there's an explicit design record of that. And that's what's contained in a procedure, someplace in a file. Okay, Bill.
Right. The program is, the files represent sort of a first level of breaking down on a logical basis the overall program, and the procedures represent just a finer breakdown down to the functional level. In this system, we have something like about 700 or so procedures, individual procedures, each of which have to keep straight in terms of what they do, how they interact with other procedures, what procedures make use of that particular one, details of information like that. In order to start to make use of the tools that we have available in the system to help us with that task, we've put together a system guide file. In this file, for each file in the system, here again we're using this example of some file F and a procedure P, off in the file F will be the actual body or the text of the procedure and some documentation about it. Then in the systems guide file, for each file in the program, there would be a branch, the name of the branch being given by the name of the file, data about that particular file, and a link finally off to the file. Then under that branch, there would be a statement that had the same name as the particular procedure over in the file. There would be a brief phrase describing the function of that procedure, and finally a link going off to the body of the procedure in the documentation. So now
do you expect quite a list of procedures under here?
There are about 700 or so,
No,
yes.
but I mean under one branch here.
Under one branch, it would depend on the file. I think that varies. Some files will be up over 100, some may only be 10 or 20. Depends on the size of the actual procedure, or how many there are in the file.
Yeah, I was saying they will be listed in succession here. Others.
We'll go to this file in a minute and look at it,
Right.
and we'll see this branch, and there'll be several statements giving this data, and then there'll be a long list of these procedures.
Good.
There's some other information kept in this system guide file also, just to help us get around. One is, at the very start, we've used the ability to draw simple line drawings to illustrate the logical relationships between the various files in the system. And then down at the end of the file, we have some categories of procedures where we've tried to go through and categorize all of these procedures. We haven't reached the point where we have them all categorized by any point, but we're working in that direction. I think if we have a few more conferences, we'll make it. Each time we have a conference, we work like mad.
To get our housekeeping done.
Right. For these categories, each category is given a name, which is called a keyword. And then for the statement that has that keyword as its name, there'll be a definition of the category and a list of the procedures that are in that category. And then we have a way in which we can manipulate these categories in order to retrieve a list of these links to get all of the procedures that are in a certain set of categories and get them ordered according to how well they match the particular categories that we're interested in. This gives us a quick way to get back the links off to the various pieces of information we're interested in. Let's go back now to the system guide file. I've been off in a separate file, and now I'm going to jump back. I was in this a little bit before, so I can just jump back to it. Now I'm at the start of this, and we're seeing the map I was telling you that describes the logical relationships between the various files. Each label in this drawing is the name of one of the files in the system. And as I said, there's a branch in this file for each of the particular ones, for each file. And I'm able to point at one of these labels and jump, using the name of that statement, jump off and get the information about it. So here I've jumped off to one, and here's the data that I was talking about, and a link off to the file. And here's a statement that says procedures in this overlay. And there's a long list under here that I can open up. This goes on and on, quite a few of them. For each one, there'd be a definition telling you what it's about, and then a link going off to it. Rather than jump off and take a look at any of this, let's go on and describe how we use those categories and what we call the keyword system. Now down to the bottom of the system guide file, where I was showing you in those previous pictures, where I have categories of procedures for file handling, display, etc. Let's just, for illustration, open up this branch. We find under file handling several keywords that we can select. Here's the name of the keyword, something telling about it. If I open this up, I find there are a couple of procedures that are relevant to that. So now I can select these keywords or category names, select checkpoint, and let's say we're interested in file I/O. I can also give weights to various keywords in order to say that one is particularly important or more important than another. Now I can say execute, and it goes off and finds those branches that are in the categories that I've selected. Now under each one of these, remember there's a link, so I'm able to say, well, let's out of these, this
Bill,
is sort of a menu.
will you do me a favor first to turn on the numbers of those statements just to see what funny mix that is?
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, these have been selected from all of the different overlays. These are procedures that have been grabbed out in some sort of an arbitrary order, the order determined only by the categories that I selected.
Thanks, yeah.
So now I have something of a menu that I can use to go off and browse through these various procedures that have been offered to me by the program as being appropriate given the categories that I selected.
And I hate to keep interrupting, but you see, the peculiar order of this comes from the fact that the machine tried to order them as the most relevant probable one being on top. Isn't that right?
That's correct.
Good. Okay.
All right, let's go off quickly. I'm jumping off to another file. Now I'm in that file for that procedure. I find some documentation telling about it. Find some code here. Turn numbers off if you don't mind. And in the documentation, I see that this uses some other procedure. And so I can use the jump to name command.
Could I interrupt in a second and say, okay, this is equivalent to finding some functional description by saying, what is it in my vehicle that has to do with the air conditioning and the temperature and the galley where people cook? And so you found, well, this was one of the more likely. You jumped off and you found a description of some device or piece of equipment.
Right.
You can see it also relates to some other piece of equipment, and you can go look at that. Good.
Now that I'm here, I find more description, and if I jump down to a branch below this now, I can find that there will actually be some code in a programming language that we use to write parts of the system. I think in the documentation for this, I noticed a link. Yes, right here it says to go off and look at this. The documentation here, as I said, there's complex logical interconnections between the various procedures. And this procedure in the documentation mentions that it depends on certain things that are taking place in another procedure. And there's a link off to that one. So I'm able to quickly go and check out things like this and get the information about it, see how this particular one works as well. Well, I've explored this line of possibilities, and I'm ready now. I think I'll go back to that menu that I had before, and perhaps I might want to go off and look at something else now. I think that about does it, Doug.
Yeah. Every time I watch that, I'm more impressed. We only had a brief glimpse at some of the programming language you use, but it's for some of you who might understand system programming, we've also evolved special purpose programming languages such that the syntax or the way that they're formatted complies with our structure in our files. So files of system programs have these levels, and you can collapse them up to look at the main levels and drop down inside. If you see a reference to some function, you can point to it and go see where that function is specified. It gives you a very fast, flexible way to move around and modify the programming code, but it uses exactly the same fundamental tools as we've used in the rest of the files, as you'll see too. All right, Bill, thanks very much. We'll move on again to look at another type of application, and that's either Mary Church, who is, oops, I have to get from one world to the other quickly here. MSC stands for Mary Church. She's going to talk about system operation from the point of view of an information system. She's beginning to be involved with a system we have to set up to provide information from online query, people wanting to find out from a database certain kinds of information. So she's been experimenting with different forms. Hi, Mary.
Hi,
Are you
Doug.
there?
Yeah?
Good.
Do you want me to turn you on my screen?
Yeah, turn me on.
Okay, there you are.
Good.
Right there.
Right. Okay, Mary, let's go.
Okay. We're in the process, as Doug suggested, of becoming an information center for a network of computer installations. And we're receiving a lot of information from them, a lot of documents, a lot of abstracts. And from this information, we're collecting citation files that contain things like the title of the document, who wrote it, where did it come from, and the date. What we're trying to do, of course, is to find a way that people can get through this information easily. For example, somebody might want just to look at citations, or somebody might want to look at a citation and then some abstracts. We can do this kind of thing very easily using the NLS structural commands that Dave and Bill have shown you. Might show you a little bit about the organization of the file, just to make things a little bit clearer. We're going off now to look at a list of the citations that have come into the Information Center. This is not a comprehensive list at all. There are many more documents than those you see on the screen. Each one of these lines here corresponds to one document that we've received. We can open this up, find out a little bit more about each of the documents. Okay. You can see here this is the complete title of the document. We have a link here off to an abstract and a link to the document itself. We can run off, look at the abstract, read it, come back very quickly, find out who wrote it by looking another level down. Another level down, when the document was written, where did it come from. You can see that the hierarchical structure of the files in NLS allows us to do a good deal with just simply jumping from one kind of information to another. But people, unfortunately, or fortunately perhaps, want to do more complicated things than this. For example, somebody wants to start here, go off, look at a citation, look at an abstract, come back to a citation, hop around in the citations, look at different kinds of information. What he's doing here is collecting information, looking at it from different views. And quite often when he does this, he wants to look at the information from the point of view of what does this information contain. For example, where did it come from? Who's the author? Give me all of the documents that were written by Elmer Shapiro. What all has come from SRI? And to facilitate this kind of operation, we have some other tools in NLS that allow us to look at the content of documents. Let's go off and take as an example the way we're trying to manage the flow of information in and out of the network. For example, the kinds of questions we're asking are things like, what's come in recently, who brought them in, what installation, were there any problems in the transcription, how has the installation response been. To do this, to answer these questions, we use a tool that we have in the system called the Content Analyzer. what this tool does is go through statements and pick out the statements which have contained within them particular phrases or characters or words that we specify. Let me show you how that works by showing you how we resolve problems in transcription. Okay, this is a list of patterns. And whenever we have a problem, for example, if we're putting a document in and we don't know exactly what the title should be, whoever puts it in will put in his guess at the title and then preface that title with these characters, asterisk, question mark, title.
You mean the characters inside the quotes?
Right, Doug, this statement here. Now, the brackets and the quotation marks on either side and the semicolon at the end are instructions to the content analyzer, which is going to compile this pattern and then search through the file to see where it is. Let me compile it for you right now. I do that by entering a command called execute content analyzer, point at the statement. Okay, it's compiled now. Now, you'll notice that it hasn't really done anything yet. It's just been compiled. I can turn the filter pattern on and off in a number of different ways. I'm going to do it right now just by jumping on a link.
Suppose we have a librarian that doesn't know what a compile is. Can we put that in reasonable terms?
Let's see. What the content analyzer does with this pattern is go through and use the directives of the bracket and the quotation marks and the semicolon to bracket off the pattern that I want to look for. So it looks for certain kinds of directives and then plucks the pattern, which in this case is asterisk, question mark, title, out from the surrounding identificatory.
But what the compiler does is it sort of goes and makes up the procedures for a stupid clerk to go through and find out how many places do you find asterisk, question mark, T-I-T-L-E.
Right, that's exactly it.
And after it's compiled, then you can tell that clerk to go do it.
Right.
So thanks for telling us.
I feel like a really stupid clerk right now. Okay, let's go off and see if it really works. We'll jump on this link. Okay, here's one coming up. It takes a little while to go through. It's going through a lot of information. You can see that there are two documents that there were problems with. Since I'm kind of the coordinator of this, I'm going to go off to the abstract and see if the title that was chosen really was appropriate. I can do that very easily. Yeah, that looks like a reasonable title, so I'll go back.
Who put that question mark in there? Somebody who entered it, right?
Right, yeah.
And they just wanted you to verify it.
That's right,
okay.
That's right. And it looks all right to me, so I'll just delete this, this query remark here. And I can do that very easily, like this. Now you'll notice that when the display is recreated, this statement up here at the top will disappear. That's because it doesn't have this pattern in it again. And the only thing on the display will be the second statement. Okay, we can go on like this with the